All right. Hi, everybody. This is Zach Nasr with the Holistic Homemaker. And today I have on air the CEO of Brain Juice, which is the ultimate cognitive enhancing drink. It's my favorite natural nootropic stack. Truly. I'm on it right now. Sam Elik is here with us. He's the CEO of Brain Juice, and we're going to get into what Brain Juice is, how it enhances cognition, and all the individual ingredients in it. You can take all of these things individually as well, so you're going to get a lot of value in this presentation. But I highly, highly recommend just getting the whole package. You can get it on Amazon, HEB Central Market, all kinds of different places. But before we get to that, I'd like to introduce Sam Elik. And I just want to hear a little bit about his journey, because a big theme in my channel, The Holistic Homemaker, is that opportunities usually come disguised as temporary defeats or hurdles. And kind of like what Les Brown says, don't say you're having a bad day, say you're having a character building day. It's those little nuggets make us who we are and kind of make the journey. So without further ado, Sam, tell us a little bit about yourself and your story and any challenges you overcame in creating your brainchild, which is Brain Juice.
Yeah, well, there's a lot. I feel like the whole path, there's this whole idea, this stoic idea of the obstacle is the way. You probably heard that book by Ryan Holiday. And, my journey has been laden with those types of obstacles. And I'll just kind of give you the quick synopsis. So I was born and raised in a small town here in Texas called Belleville, Texas. And I kind of grew up in like a rancher type, farmer type community. So we had this love for earth and the land, but the consciousness was like, there was kind of a high, there was a type of high consciousness, but there's also this like, kind of bubble little, not really, not a lot of awareness of the outer world, so to speak. So anyway, I grew up there. I ended up coming to UT when I was 18 years old. So I moved to Austin then. And all growing up, I had trouble concentrating in school. I never really liked to listen to my teachers, unless it was a class that I really loved. The system just didn't work for me. I would sit there and think about what I wanted to think about, or I didn't really have cell phones back then, so I couldn't really surf the web, but I would have been surfing the web on my phone if I could have. And I just always had trouble concentrating. So what I would do is I would take NoDoz. I would drink energy drinks. As you know, we grew up in the energy drink generation, so we could just pound energy drinks, and I would overstimulate, and I would stay up all night and cram for the test and somehow pull out an A. So I did that all throughout high school, and I did it when I got to UT as well in college. And somewhere along the way, I kind of had this feeling ever since I was a little kid, actually, that, for an important purpose. And can you hear me okay, by the way?
Yes, I can hear you.
I always had this feeling that I'm here for an important purpose. And I remember seeing the movie Batman when I was a kid, and I was always inspired by Batman because he's a normal dude who happens to be a billionaire, and he takes his abundance and he uses it to create all these cool crime-fighting gadgets and cars and vehicles, and things that help people. And of course, as kids, you're inspired by the superhero thing. As you get older, you realize, well, maybe it's not realistic to be an actual superhero, but I can still do something that helps the world, and use the abundance that's created by it to do more cool things, and just kind of keep leveling up, like Elon Musk. And I've always been very inspired by Elon Musk as well. And first Zip2, then he used that to do PayPal, then he used the PayPal harvest to do Tesla and SpaceX. So I've been very inspired by that as well. So anyway, to go back into the story, so I just had trouble concentrating in school, got through UT, and I found the school called the Acton MBA in entrepreneurship. And it used to be the entrepreneurship program at McCombs, the McCombs MBA program. But in epic entrepreneurial fashion, the guy who had built the program up at UT got tired of being kind of oppressed by the bureaucracy that UT is. It's this huge school, and it's kind of run by the tenured professors, who are mostly people who have studied business theory but haven't really maybe started their own company from scratch. And Jeff Sandifer was a lifelong entrepreneur, started 5 successful companies. And so he got tired, the tenured professors were trying to tell him what to do. So he was like, screw this, I'm leaving, I'll start my own school. So that was how Acton was born in 2002. And it's a school you can only teach there if you're a successful entrepreneur who's currently running a company. So I heard about this school and I thought, man, this is where I want to go. I want to learn how to start companies from these guys who are super successful at starting companies. So I went there, and it's a super hard school. They make it really difficult. It's like 120 hours a week of work, like 100 to 120. It's kind of ridiculous, actually. And so about a month or two into it, I just like, my brain was just putting. Like, just imagine like a 40-year-old car that hasn't had the oil changed in years. And it just like stopped. Like, my brain just locked up one night. It was like 2 a.m, and I was trying to study for this test the next day. And I was like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know. I didn't think I was going to pass. I didn't think I was going to graduate. And so I just had this thought. I was like, there's got to be something I can feed my brain right now that would give it the nutrients it needs, instead of just, overstimulating with caffeine. So the next day I went to Whole Foods and I bought all these pill supplements, a lot of the nutrients that you find in brain juice now. I just bought them all in pill form and started taking them. And I didn't know anything about the brain at that point, really. So I just bought the ones that said, brain supplement or neuro optimizer or whatever it said, and started taking them. And I started noticing some benefit. Now, it wasn't an immediate benefit, but it started to happen over time. And I started to see some benefit. And I was like, okay, well, there's something to this whole brain supplement thing. But I wish there was something that I could just take immediately that was, I could take it right away and it would just work quickly, like the movie Limitless, Yeah. The movie Limitless actually wasn't out at this time, because that movie came out in 2011, and this was like 2009, 2010 that this was all happening. So anyway, I thought, man, it'd be awesome if something like that existed. I looked for it. I couldn't find it. So I thought, that'd be a great thing to create. And along the way, I met some other people. I met this guy, James, and he and I kind of had this conversation where this idea came out of, what if we had something that worked immediately that people could use to study and in their lives, their careers, entrepreneurs, whatever, artists. So ended up meeting a guy named Peter Kirby, who's a biochemist. And he studied neurochemistry under a guy named Dr. Datis Kharrazian, who's one of the top neurochemists in the world. And Datis takes a natural approach to everything. So he really balances what I think is the best of both worlds, science and nature. So what we did was we took his science and we did a whole bunch of research online. We ordered all these cutting edge brain nutrients from all over the world, and we started mixing them together. And we spent about a year doing it, did about 108 different iterations before we got like the beta version of brain juice. And then we started having it before that, we would give them we'd first take them ourselves, give them to our friends, and have them take surveys and play brain training games on Lumosity.com. And that's how we kind of navigated the path to find a formula that worked.
You can measure
and then, we measured it more or less. It wasn't necessarily a double-blind scientific study, but it was some type of measurement that helped us navigate to a great product. So anyway, after 108 different trials, about a year, we got our first batch made, which was right around the time, like New Year's going into 2012. It was like December, January, 2012. So the movie Limitless had come out recently, and my business partners and I actually drank the current iteration of Brain Juice and went and saw the movie in theaters. And so we were like, wow, this is going to be great for us. It's like, all of a sudden people are going to want something like this. So right after that is when we started selling it. And the first iteration, the first like beta version, wasn't that great. It had some preservatives in it because the bottler we used, they were like, we either use preservatives or we can't do it. And they were the only bottler we could afford because they had a small batch size of like 2,500 bottles. So we were like, so we bit the bullet and used some preservatives, and it didn't taste that great. And we weren't nearly, I mean, I was health conscious at the time, but I wasn't nearly as health conscious as I am now, because that was like, 5-6 years ago. I guess 4 or 5 years ago now. Anyway, so our first iteration was okay. And we started selling it and just giving it away, and we got good feedback and bad feedback. So a lot of people didn't like the taste, they didn't like the preservatives, but a lot of people got some benefit out of it. So the next iteration, we made it a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better. And now we're at version 5.0. And did you want to ask a question real quick?
I was gonna say, was that the one that I first tried that had some milk solids ingredient or some kind of
Cultured dairy solids. Yeah, that one was like actually like 3.0.
3.0? Okay, that
Yeah,
was the
we're
first.
at 5.0 now. So
Nice.
that was 3.0, and that one actually just it had what's called niacin in it, Nisin. It's not niacin, it's niacin, and it's like a cultured like bacteriocin, which is kind of like a bacteria protein, which keeps bad bacteria out. So that was a preservative we used for a while too, which was supposed to be a healthy natural preservative, but of course we got a lot of pushback from dairy because I mean I don't even really eat much dairy myself, and people just didn't want dairy. So we are like, okay, we'll find another way. So we stopped doing that as well, and now we got it to the point where our pH is low enough to where we can just heat the formula up for a little bit, and then that kills anything that's in there, and then bottle it and have no bacteria. And the pH is low enough that the bacteria can't get in there if they're not already in there. They can't grow in there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, anything in there.
I noticed this one, the 5.0 versus 3.0, does taste a lot better, and it's kind of peachy mangoey, and like
Yeah.
full disclosure, it's a little bitter, but it's got caffeine and it's a shot, and caffeine is bitter, it's an alkaloid.
Right.
It's very mangoey, blueberry, and you have like blueberry and acai, and there's another fruit, acerola cherry with
Yeah.
vitamin C. I did notice it tastes a lot better. It's really good, and honestly, 5 Hour Energy is a multi-billion-dollar company, and 5 Hour Energy A tastes bad. B, it's just caffeine with some B vitamins in it, and like I love the
Synthetic vitamins. It's the lowest grade of them too.
Yeah, and I noticed also you use the methylcobalamin, which is the good B12 that doesn't turn into cyanide in your body. So kudos on that. But what I really want to talk about, my two favorite nootropic stacks, Siltep, which uses long-term potentiation of acetylcholine. If you don't know what acetylcholine is, it's a neurotransmitter for focus, memory, and learning. And so they use acetyl L-carnitine for that long-term buildup. And then alpha GPC, which is an alpha brain, is my other favorite natural stack besides brain juice. And what I love is that you've taken both of those ingredients and put them together, and you added the vitamins needed to actually convert it into the neurotransmitter acetylcholine. So can you tell us a little bit more about that, acetylcholine in general, and kind of the process of understanding all those vitamins and nutrients?
Absolutely. So our goal was to create the best, the best formula that works instantly, that has everything you need for memory, focus, clarity, and mood and motivation. So we of course identified acetylcholine as the neurotransmitter for focus, clarity, and memory recall, memory creation and memory recall. And we identified dopamine as the neurotransmitter for mood and motivation. So the primary thing brain juice does is it has all, like you said, all the nutrients that your brain needs to produce acetylcholine. The secondary thing it does is it has all the nutrients you need to produce dopamine. And of course, we mix that in with a bunch of other good things like organic blueberry, organic acai berry, green tea, acerola cherry, which is a really high quality organic form of vitamin C. So to get to the acetylcholine thing, your brain needs a choline molecule, an acetyl molecule, and vitamin B5 to produce acetylcholine. It's pretty basic. What we do is we found the highest quality ones of those we could get, and we put them in brain juice. And of course, those 108 trials I told you about is kind of how we found the right levels. Took us a while to get there. We did the same thing with the dopamine. And so what you're getting is, it's kind of like lenses. You get like the focus and clarity lens, and then you get the mood and motivation lens. And when you put them together, you get both. You get like focused, uplifted mood. With green tea, you get a little bit of caffeine in there. So it's a nice, healthy caffeine boost. It's only 75 milligrams, which is like a third as much of a cup of coffee. So you're not getting a ton of caffeine, but you're getting a little boost. And we also have a caffeine-free version for those people who don't want any caffeine. It's not available in Whole Foods yet, but it will be. It is available in Central Market and on our website and places like that. So that's kind of the basic science. We could go deeper if you want, but does that answer your question?
Yes, I love it. And I'd like to touch a little bit more on the dopamine as well, too, because Acetylcholine is not part of the flow cycle, as some people call it, which flow or engagement is just an optimal state of consciousness where you make near perfect decision making. But dopamine is a part of the flow cycle, and it's a part of that kind of build up as you get to the peak of the flow state, as it's called in positive psychology. And I have consistently gotten in a flow state every time that I've taken brain juice. And I'm not promising that to everybody. That's just my experience. You know that old adage, time flies when you're having fun? Yeah. I get that consistently where I'll have 3, 4, 5-hour conversations where the time just goes by and I'm never stumbling or stopping or falling on my words. And I'm also not jittery. It's like you said, you get that little caffeine boost and that zing from it, but you're not like jittery. A lot of people think that jittery, Adderall, caffeine is focus, and like sure you get a lot more done because you have a lot of more energy, but people lose a lot of their effectiveness with that jitteriness. And so the dopamine, if you're not familiar with dopamine, it's like that reward compound. You know, if you're like thinking about and an answer on a crossword puzzle and you get it and you're like, oh, I got it, yes. Dopamine is that reward, like, oh, it feels so good, I'm confident, I'm on top of the world. It's also what makes, you know, sugar and cocaine and amphetamine so addictive because it feels so good. And so you put the precursor to dopamine, so right. L-dopa, what your body converts into dopamine.
Well, we actually put L-tyrosine in there, which converts into L-dopa and then into dopamine. Because L-dopa is a little bit, based on our research, it's a little bit iffy for some people. It's easy to overdose on it. L-tyrosine is a little easier on the body because it's a non-essential neurotransmitter. I mean, sorry, a non-essential amino acid, but it's in a lot of proteins already that people are taking. So anyway.
Is it because the L-dopa kind of gets some people like wound up in a stressful, like too accelerated possibly?
I think so. I'm not 100% sure. I just know that in my research, I found that there was some negative effects of L-dopa that were reported. Whereas very little to none with L-tyrosine. And I wanted to mitigate negative effects of people having, taken our product, of course. So we just decided to do L-tyrosine, which, it's one more step in the process, but I think it does a pretty good job of converting into dopamine. You probably do too, if you have that consistent flow state, so it works pretty well.
Yeah, and then you add in other nutrients and cofactors to help it kind of convert over, at least from my memory of studying up on brain juice.
Absolutely.
So with L-theanine, I know that Natural Stacks, the people who make Siltep, they have a smart caffeine,
right?
Which is caffeine and then L-theanine. And L-theanine, if you're not familiar, is an amino acid, and it's in teas, all real teas like black tea, oolong tea, green tea. And so it's cool that you used green tea caffeine instead of just Arabica beans extract. But is L-theanine an agonist of caffeine? To me, it kind of mellows out the caffeine and sort of chills it out. But so what was your thought process on using the L-theanine and the green tea caffeine? I know a lot of people use L-theanine just as a nootropic on its own. But what was your...
It was exactly what you just said. To me, it mellows out the caffeine a little bit. It takes the edge off. And it just kind of provides that, it balances out with green tea caffeine well to provide an energy, but more of a calm, non-jittery energy. So that was it right there. And what we did was we put a little extra L-theanine in there. Of course, the green tea has L-theanine as well, but we just put a little bit extra, not much, like 25 milligrams extra, to have a little bit more.
Nice.
Yep. So that's where you get that calm, focused flow state. That's the goal.
Yeah. That is exactly what I've noticed. Because you just feel so good. And something that I'll say about other nootropics out there, like I'm a big fan of the racetams, like aniracetam and phenylpiracetam. I'm a big sort of a fan of the eugeroics, like Provigil and Uvigil and that kind of thing. I think they're a little overstimulating. But what I've noticed about a lot of the racetams, and in particular other natural ones like Siltep and Alpha Brain, some of those out there, is that the feeling is so natural of your brain working correctly, like not stumbling on your words, not forgetting what you went to look for when you went to open the fridge, and those kinds of little hiccups, like when a word is stuck on the tip of your tongue. a lot of times we don't notice the effects because the effects are so subtle. What I love about brain juice is you get that subtle effect and you get the immediate, like, oh, wow, I feel good. I have energy. My mood's up. Like, I feel like I can take on the world.
Yeah,
So that's what you were saying that you were going for, is the more subtle cognitive enhancement and the immediate kind of get you up and going and feeling happy and motivated.
absolutely. I think that's what people really want when they drink energy drinks or when they take any of these things. I mean, I actually like Alpha Brain too. I think it's a great product. I prefer it to Siltap actually, but brain juice is more of an immediate effect than all those products, and I think that's what really people want a lot of times. They want something they can, they're tired, they're unmotivated, they're unclear. They want something they can drink and have those moments of clarity that makes it clear what they need to do, and can you go do it. So we believe there's a huge market for our product, and I actually believe that brain juice solves the real need that the mass market has way better than 5 Hour Energy or Red Bull or any of those other drinks out there. So we're looking to take over that market share. We'll see what happens.
I agree, man. I mean, it's kind of like that guy Manoj. I mean, he's the guy who created 5 Hour Energy. It's basically just I don't even know if I would say it's a slight step up from caffeine, just because it has so many artificial flavors and different things like that in there. But yours is totally natural. It has nootropic effects, and you get the immediate effects of the energy drink effects, and that's what makes it my favorite. I like Siltep and Alpha Brain and the other ones, but this one is my favorite because I feel blasted off in a great way. It's not like, oh, I have so much energy. Hey, you want to go do stuff? Like, it's not that jittery kind of thing. It's just, you're just on point. You feel in the zone.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, to wrap this up, what are your top 3 life hacks that viewers of the show can kind of put into practice right now for being more effective in their job and business, or in their health, life in general, relationships, whatever it is, spirituality? What are your top 3 life hacks to just make people's lives better that they can start doing today?
Got it. Well, I'll set brain juice aside. Obviously, brain juice is one of my top ones, but I'll do the 3 in addition to brain juice. So number 1 for me is meditation. It's like I do a specific type of meditation. You can call it meditation, whatever. It doesn't have to be called meditation. But remember how we talked about obstacles and kind of this idea of the obstacle is the way? Well, about 3-4 years ago, it was actually the beginning of brain juice. We had some trouble. Our first iteration was okay, but it wasn't that great. We weren't in any stores yet, and we needed investment. And there were a lot of times where our bank account was very low, and it was scary. We're like, well, how are we going to pay the bills next month? It just was a tough time emotionally for me, and probably for everybody involved. And I think that's pretty common in most startups. And I realized at that time that I had all these bottled up emotions deep down inside of like fear of failure, all kinds of stuff. And, fear of running out of money. What will people think? What will happen to me? Blah, blah, blah. That's just part of it. There's really the full gamut of emotions that I went through. Of course, you have the excitement when you create a great product, when you get a good review, and when you make a sale, all that. But there's also the negative. And I realized that over time, I would just have those, I would just bottle those up. I wasn't that good at letting them out. And what I learned was that the process of processing emotions and letting them out is one of the most important things, at least for me, that I can possibly do. So I kind of developed this type of meditation where I'll just sit and I'll go inside the emotion. So I sit and I kind of do a little body scan real quick. So I'll kind of feel into my feet, feel into my legs, my kind of pelvis area, my stomach, my chest, my back, my head, and I can always feel nowadays. I'm very tuned into it. I can feel if there's any form of resistance in there, or if I'm holding on to any emotions or any anxieties, because my body has gotten to the point where it feels pretty good most of the time, and it feels pretty clear, and I just feel good. And if there's emotion stuck inside me, I can feel it, because it's almost like a splinter. It feels like a splinter. It's like your foot feels good, until you have a splinter in it, and then you're pretty clear that there's something wrong with your foot, right? You take a step and there's a freaking splinter there. And that's how people are with emotions, is we have all these like emotional splinters that we store inside of us, you know. And you talk about people with bad tempers, for example. Those are people that just have a lot of anger in them. It's not that there's anything wrong with them, except that they have all this bottled up anger, and when they get pressed by the world, much like when your foot gets pressed when you take a step when you have a splinter in it, the anger comes out. And so what I started doing was just feeling into all these emotions, and instead of running away from them and focusing outside, I focus inside and I go into them. And there's a few different tools and techniques you can use when you're in that space. One of them is tapping. You probably heard of EFT tapping, right? Mm-hmm. Tapping, there's all the meridian points. I do tapping sometimes, because sometimes it's nice just to have a kinesthetic boost that helps kind of process through those emotions and let them go. I also do what's called the core process, or the core technique, which is where you kind of do a body scan and you identify where the emotional blockage is, you know, what chakra it's in or what meridian or whatever, and then literally just go into the emotion. I kind of imagine it as like a little ball of emotion, or almost like a little splinter in there that's like reverberating energy outside. You know, it's kind of like just sending out pain energy. And I go into it and I just sit there and I try to be mindful, fully mindful and present. And I always think of it as mindfulness and equanimity. I got this from this guy who wrote this book called The Science of Enlightenment. His name is Shinzen Young. And he talks about mindfulness and equanimity. And it's basically being fully present with whatever's going on, with the emotion or whatever's going on inside you. And when you do that, when you get into that state, it actually releases the emotion. And it's like there's three ways to get an emotion there's three ways to, three things you can do with an emotion. Number one, you can express it. So you can, if you have anger, you can express it to somebody else, or you can hit something, right? Two, you can suppress it, which is where you bottle it up. And three, you can just feel it and just go into it, like what I'm talking about, and let it go. And you're not suppressing it and you're not expressing it in a negative way. You're just letting it go. So that's really what I'm talking about here. And tapping and using the core process and going inside of it are so powerful. There's also another process called MAP, which was developed by one of my mentors, Colette Stryker. And it's very similar to the core process, where you just feel it and you actually communicate with your higher self, or what she calls your superconscious. And your superconscious, kind of, which is like the higher version of you, goes in and helps you let it go. So that's number one. And to me, it's very important, and once you start doing that and you kind of clear out your emotional space, it starts to become really clear that so many other people are walking around with tons of emotional baggage. We all are. We start accumulating it from birth, maybe even before then, but we accumulate all this emotional baggage, and those emotional blockages are really what hold us back in life. Most people have the knowledge necessary to succeed, but it's like they have these emotional blockages or even belief blockages that keep them from succeeding. So anyway, that's number one. Number two is I do a lot of earthing and sunbathing, whatever you call it, connecting to the earth, connecting to the elements. You can also add in jumping in water. I love going to the Greenbelt or in Barton Springs. Is itself an emotional cleanse, and it's energizing. It's just a good reset. So I love doing that. I think it's really important to be connected with the planet, with nature. I think it helps people connect people spiritually to God, or to whatever they want to call spirit, and it's just a really good thing. It also heals the body. There's so much scientific evidence that talks about the benefit of just putting your bare feet or your bare skin on the earth. It lowers inflammation. It lowers pain. It just boosts you in every way. So that's number two. Let's see. Number three. There's so many things I do.
It also, the earthing helps with cortisol. I mean, even which is your stress hormones, helps normalize your sleep schedules. Yeah, you're right. There's some people are calling it nature deficit disorder.
Yeah, so true.
Out in nature. Great books about that as well.
Yeah, I actually sleep on an earthing sheet, and I have an earthing pad right now that my feet are on as we do this interview.
With organite. Nice, I saw that.
Yeah, with the organite. The other thing too about earthing is that we have EMFs. You probably are familiar with EMFs, right? Electromagnetic frequencies. Everybody these days is walking around with a little computer in their pocket, which is sending and receiving tons of information in the form of waves and frequencies. And those are stressors on our body in high dosages. So earthing is a really good way to ground out those EMFs. And like right now, I have my feet on the earthing pad, and so the computer isn't really affecting me that much. It's just going right through me. So, that kind of goes into number 2. Number 3, I'd say the number 3 biggest hack is the people you surround yourself with. You know this one just as well as I do.
Yeah.
It's so important to hang out with what I call high vibe people who are positive minded, good people. They have goals, ambitions, and they have good habits instead of bad habits, because their habits are going to rub off on us. And, if there's any like success hack, really all 3 of them are really important, but that third one of hanging out with people, it's so important. Yeah. You become the average of the top 5 people you hang out with. They also say your salary becomes the average of the top 5 people you hang out with. And you learn from them. So yes. Those are my 3 right there.
Yeah, I love that one. I do like the 33 rule, as Ty Lopez calls it, where 30% of your time you're sharing your expertise with people who kind of need their little boost. 33% of the time is with people that you are your peers, people you're kind of going through the same things with, and 33% you're being mentored by people who are like way ahead of you, either financially or spiritually or in health, whatever kind of aspiring to. I love that. But you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
With high vibe, positive attitude. That's it. It doesn't matter. Like, to me, like there are some people who like will eat super healthy or do yoga and stuff like that and meditation, but then they just have this like, well, it's hard to meditate all the time and do yoga and have a negative attitude. But more importantly than attitude, if it's always like, oh, I love organic food. Oh yeah, but big agriculture sucks and blah, blah, blah. And they're all just trying to poison us and kill us and blah, 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 blah. And like all this stuff. Like, I understand that stuff happens. It goes on, but I love like Seth Blaustein and Max Borders, their Voice and Exit, where they're like, criticize, create something better. And that's how you critique the system instead of just always, whining and complaining.
Yeah, Buckminster Fuller. You've heard his quote, right? Don't spend your time tearing down the current system. Instead, spend your time building a new model that makes the current model obsolete.
Yes.
Which I know he's very influential to Seth and Max as well. Seth actually gave me this little lapis right here. Love that guy.
Yes.
Actually, I met you with Seth, didn't I? When I came to your house. Remember that?
That was the second time we met. We met very, very briefly at the debut of 3.0. Brain Juice, and it was very briefly.
That's right.
Like I was going in the door, and I was there to meet somebody else who also lived at that place, and so I was like, "Oh, it's Sam. Hey, great to meet you. You also live here? Okay, cool." And then we like went past each other, and I drank the drink, and I loved it. And I went in another room and had a long conversation with. Realized like 3 hours had passed where I was talking about like cancer and essential oils and health and detoxification and all this stuff, and I just didn't have to think about anything. And I was like, wow. And I think on the way out I was like, this is awesome, man, keep doing this.
Yeah. And
so that was really the extent of our meeting, where we really got to talk.
I remember that now. Yeah,
here in front of this bookshelf. But yeah, that was when we really did that. Well, yeah, thank you so much for being on the air with me and on this interview. I'm sure it won't be the last time, because I know you have so many other awesome things to offer and share, but I really wanted to talk about Brain Juice just because I know it's your brainchild and I love it. The world deserves to know about it. I highly, highly recommend you get these products on Amazon or at Whole Foods and ATP Central Market if you just want to try it. You can just buy one. I recommend getting a case. Try it for a month. See how your brain feels after a month. And yeah, with that, we'll sign off. Thanks again, Sam. I appreciate so much all that you've shared with us. Great life hacks.
My pleasure, Zach. Thank you. And I'd love to be back on another time. This is awesome.
Yeah, for some other life hacks. Yeah.
Absolutely.